Day 3 of the Christopher Schurr trial included a call for a mistrial and a directed verdict. The defense made the request, but the judge denied it and testimony continued.
The former Grand Rapids officer is charged with second-degree murder for the deadly shooting of Patrick Loyola 3 years ago.
13 on your side's Callie Lichter is following the trial this week. She joins us live from the Kent County Courthouse. And Callie, the defense called several witnesses today. What was their focus of their testimony?
Juliet, Elena, that is true. We heard from several defense witnesses today, but one in particular was really used to get the point across for the defense, that Schurr was just doing his job and that this was self-defense. Now, we heard from a forensic video analyst and from 4 GRPD officers, all called from the defense. One of those witnesses, Grand Rapids Police Captain David Siver, was questioned by the defense on GRPD policy and a lot of the same use of force questions asked to the prosecution's use of force experts. Siver testified what GRPD considers to be reasonable for their officers and when officers are trained to use deadly force, with the defense trying to push back on testimony from the prosecution's use of force experts.
If the situation, that officer has deemed that situation has resulted in they're going to elect to use deadly force, they need to stop that threat. We teach to shoot center mass because that's the largest target area that people have. So upper chest, upper back, those areas, we don't train to shoot limbs or shoot the gun out of somebody's hand because the likelihood of success is not very high.
At the end of defense questioning, Siver testified a reasonable officer would have used the same deadly force as in this situation. And we ended the day with heated cross-examination by Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker on GRPD's lack of foot pursuit policy. And that's questioning that will take us into tomorrow morning. Live at the Kent County Courthouse, I'm Callie Lichter, 13 on your side.
Callie, thank you. And like you mentioned, today the prosecution rested its case and the defense began bringing their witnesses to the stand. 13 Your Side's Lauren Baker has been covering this trial for our live stream on 13+. She joins us now. And Lauren, what are the major differences between the set of witnesses that we've seen?
Well, Elena, the biggest difference we have seen in the witnesses today is that none of the witnesses for the prosecution were from Grand Rapids Police, but many of the defense witnesses from today were from GRPD. And like you heard Callie just mention, we just heard from Captain Siver, but we also heard from Police Officer Nicholas Kalati, Officer Sam Mott, and Officer Timothy Johnson. And what you're seeing is the defense is really trying to begin their case by setting the scene of the day and creating a path to Schurr's response to that situation with Loyola. They've been asking these witnesses questions like, did you see Schurr that day? Was he out of breath or was he worn out? A similar thing we saw with the prosecution on day 1, with their witnesses really painting the scene of what people saw that day. But as we've been saying this whole trial, the defense has some 40 witnesses ready to take the stand at any time. It'll be interesting to see if they call all 40 of those people, Juliet.
Thank you, Lauren. During the day, Schurr's defense team made motions that could have stopped the trial altogether. 13 on your side's Josh Albertus is also covering the trial for us. And Josh, you talked to experts about this. What was the defense asking for?
Well, Juliet, they were proposing that the judge declare a mistrial, which would have essentially meant we would stop this trial and start fresh with a new one. They also asked the judge to consider what's called a directed verdict, which would basically ask the judge to reach a decision on the case. On day 3 of the trial of former Grand Rapids police officer Christopher Schurr, charged with murder in the death of Patrick Loyola, the prosecution resting its case. After they did so, Schurr's defense team saying they would make 2 motions that could have brought the case to a halt. The first, a motion for a mistrial based on past expert testimony.
At this point, we believe that we're too far along with the jury to simply strike their testimony because they have heard testimony from 2 of the people's experts now that do not accurately and are not nowhere near based on what the law is in Michigan and what should be considered and whether or not Officer Schurr was justified in using deadly force.
The second, a motion for what's called a directed verdict.
What they were asking for the court to do was to declare that the prosecution hadn't established enough evidence to meet every element of the offense.
That directed verdict would essentially have put the power of the verdict in the hands of Judge Christina Mims.
And what they were saying is that, hey, even if you take all the facts in the light most favorable to the prosecution, at the end of the day, they did not establish enough facts for a reasonable jury to conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that it was without justification.
Such a motion, these experts told us, are very common in criminal cases. But both of these motions were denied by Judge Mims. When it came to the motion for a directed verdict,
She carefully went through those elements and explained that there was evidence that, in her opinion, a reasonable jury could find the elements had been proved.
and on the motion for a mistrial,
The judge was very careful going through saying that the reason she had allowed and ruled the experts on the prosecution's case, why they could testify and what they could testify to, and because, in her opinion, that testimony was admissible, it did not support a motion for a mistrial.
and of course, as you've heard, because these asks were rejected, this trial will continue and pick up tomorrow morning, guys.
Thank you, Josh. And you can watch the entire trial on our streaming app, 13+. We begin at 8:30 every morning with Lauren Baker, who has an overview of what's happened so far and what's expected in the day ahead. Now, the judge has ordered a 30-minute delay for all media showing the trial, so we'll begin showing you the trial at around 9 a.m. We'll also have expert analysis and updates from our crews at the courthouse. Again, you can watch it all on our streaming app, 13+, and